Hi, it's Steve Walker. Before we get started with this episode, I want to let you know about a couple of great opportunities available at my website, integrityandjoy.com. First, I'm offering a free workshop on December 28th at 11 a.m. Eastern. It's going to be on Zoom. And it's going to be a great opportunity to reflect on 2024 and set yourself up to get off to a good start for 2025. It's called Reflecting on 2024, Gratitude, Lessons, and Empowerment. So check that out and sign up and register at my website. The second thing is I'm going to offer a series of 4 workshops that will help you really get off to a great start in 2025. You'll get an opportunity to set some goals, set some real clear intentions, come up with an actual plan for making them reality, and have built-in accountability so you'll actually follow through. Instead of seeing resolutions that fade away and wither by the roadside, by February, this is an opportunity to actually start 2025 off with a real sense of accomplishment, making some concrete changes in your life. So make sure you go to integrityandjoy.com and sign up today. Welcome to Integrity and Joy. I'm Steve Walker. This is episode 4. Today we're going to be talking about our inner voice. Is it your biggest cheerleader or, like for many of us, your harshest critic? We'll explore why we have such a negative inner voice, how paradigms and mindsets often define that inner critic and limit our possibilities, and what are some concrete steps you can take to quiet your inner critic and adopt new mindsets and paradigms that will unlock the life you want to be living. So welcome to episode 4. I am Steve Walker, former U.S. diplomat, activist, educator, and now life coach, meditation teacher, and podcaster. So welcome. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully this is not the first time, but if it is, welcome. I wanted to make a pitch. If you haven't listened to the last episode 3 with Jamie Arkin, oh my gosh, you gotta go back and give that a listen. People have just been raving about what a great interview it is. She's fantastic. She's just fascinating, reflective, insightful, and her story is inspirational. People are loving it. So, anyways, go back, give it a listen. Please make sure you're following the podcast in general and that you rate and review it so that we can get it in front of more people. So I appreciate that. I also want to encourage you to go to our website, integrityandjoy.com. And we've got workshops that are coming up, particularly if you're listening to this right after release. On December 28th, we've got a free workshop on ending 2024 well, and that's going to be awesome. And then in January and early February, we're going to have a series of workshops. You sign up for the whole package, and it's going to hopefully change your track record from having resolutions that fade away by February and instead make some real changes in your life that can stick. So I hope you'll check that out. Today we're talking about your inner voice. And, I think a lot of us, feel like there's something holding us back a lot of the time. Either we're stuck or we're not quite living the life that we want to. We don't have enough control over certain things in our lives. We're maybe afraid of really going after some of the goals, the hopes and dreams that we have. And often it's our inner voice, right? Which sometimes feels like it's us, right? That we've got this voice in our head that makes us think that we're really out of control sometimes and just constantly, for some of us, filled with anxiety or worry or what I call time traveling, either focusing a lot on revisiting the past, which is an inaccurate memory, right? We don't actually remember the past accurately. And yet we spend a lot of time worrying about it, thinking about it, replaying things in our heads. or we time travel to the future and spend a lot of time worrying about the future. And even though the future is totally unwritten, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Never mind a year from now or 10 years from now or whatever. So, so our inner voice is often creating a lot of worry, anxiety, hyper-focusing on negative stuff. And it can really be a problem. It can really hold us back. And, they say that we may have as many as 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, right? Constant chatter. And that for many of us, on most days, the vast majority of those tens of thousands of thoughts are negative. And many of them, in some cases, most of them, are repetitive. So, in other words, in our brains, we've got this voice that is constantly chattering, talking to us about negative stuff, negative ideas, negative paradigms and mindsets and memories or projections into the future. And a lot of it's repetitive. So it's no wonder that a lot of us struggle to actually have clarity and focus and stay in the moment and go after the life that we want. So, we're going to talk today about how that works and maybe what we can start doing about it to shift that dynamic, right? The first problem with that inner voice is that it lacks integrity, right? My favorite topic. First of all, it is inaccurate, right? When it's thinking about the past or the future, the past is an inaccurate recollection of what happened. Right? It's not exactly what happened. And the future is unwritten. So it's inaccurate, and sometimes it's lying to us, right? And sometimes that's the result of like childhood trauma or, certain people who've, told us certain things about ourselves that just aren't true, or about the world that aren't true. And so then we're making assumptions and doing things or not doing things based on lies that we keep telling ourselves over and over again. It's also cruel, right? And if you read the Four Agreements, one of my favorite books, being impeccable with your word includes using your word for good, not ill. And you shouldn't talk badly about other people and gossip, and you certainly shouldn't talk crap about yourself to yourself. And yet our inner voice can be so harsh. We talk to ourselves sometimes much worse than we would ever talk to another human being, and much worse than we would tolerate anybody talking to somebody whom we love, right? I mean, if you make a mistake, how badly do you beat the crap out of yourself, right? It's just terrible. And then our inner voice also creates drama. Right? It creates anxiety and fear, anger sometimes, which often, anger is often the result of fear coupled with a sense of lacking control over the situation. It creates assumptions, right? It talks about assumptions that we're making about certain situations or people that may not be true at all. So it's one of those people, that we all know in our lives who's constantly creating drama, and that's our inner voice. And it can feel like that's us, right? But it's not, right? It's parts of our brain that are, often some of the more primitive parts of our brain that are intended to identify possible threats and risks. And those parts of our brain can be really powerful and loud, and yet that's just that our nervous system is getting triggered by it, and now we're in a place where our nervous system is dysregulated. We might even be into fight or flight mode, right? So forget logical, rational thinking at that point. So it's really problematic, right? So of course we're going to struggle living the life we want to when all that's going on up there. But it's not the real you, like the authentic you, is the observer, right? That's one way to think about it. That, there's that voice that's being triggered, kind of automatically by certain parts of our brain that is problematic. But then there's the authentic us, yourself, your soul. And that part is observing what's going on up there, or at least should be. Oftentimes, it feels like we're being dictated to and controlled by that inner voice of negativity and fear and anxiety and all that. And instead, we need to be observing that voice and being able to tell it, shh, quiet. Like, I got a business to do here. I've got a life to live here. I've got a moment to be in right now. Because we can quiet it, right? It's not going to go away, right? But the research says that if we can at least reduce the number of negative thoughts, ideally replace some of them with positive thoughts, but at a minimum, reduce the negative thoughts, that will make a significant difference in our lives. So that's part of what we're after. And so some people will even give a name to that inner voice, the inner critic, the fear-mongering part of our brain. Some people see it as like cranky old grandma sitting in the corner in the rocking chair, like, grandma, shh, be quiet. Or they'll give it a name. Sometimes if somebody who they've known that they didn't like, and they'll tell that person to be quiet. I worked with a psychologist who used to call it the anxiety fish, who's always looking to feed. So don't feed the fish. Whatever it is, whatever works for you, to put yourself in the mindset of becoming the observer and observing that voice and trying to quiet that voice and not just following that voice wherever it wants to lead you, right? That's the goal. Part of what's going on with that inner voice is that there are paradigms and mindsets that are inaccurate and or unhealthy for us. And they shape our actions, right? The way that we see ourselves, the mindsets that we have, and the way we see the world, the paradigms that we have, which were often kind of drilled into us by parents or siblings or teachers when we were young. Those mindsets and paradigms dictate our actions, right? The way we see ourselves in the world obviously influences how we act, what we say, what we do, which then determines the results we get, right? Along with other factors. And then those results reinforce the paradigms and the mindsets, right? So, for instance, if you have a fixed mindset, you think that you are just bad at something. I'm bad at math. I'm bad at music, playing the piano, whatever. Then you think you have a mindset that says, I'm just not good at this thing. So no matter how much I practice it, I'm not going to be any good. Well, then you probably won't practice much, right? And therefore, you won't get better, which then reinforces the mindset that I'm just bad at playing the piano or math or whatever. So if we have a growth mindset, then we believe that with practice, right, focused practice, we can get better at almost anything. And that's what the research shows. We can get better at almost anything. You may not become, this virtuoso pianist, right? Or some brilliant mathematician. You might, but you might not, right? Because there's a certain amount of innate ability too, and other circumstances play into it. But you can get better at those things if you practice and maybe get some instruction, right? So if you believe that with practice, with focused practice and instruction, you can get better at almost anything, well, then you'll probably practice more and you will get better, which then reinforces your growth mindset. So these mindsets and paradigms are really important. And yet we have a lot of negative ones and a lot of ones that are inaccurate or unhealthy for us. So we really need to shift those, because what they end up becoming is limiting beliefs. They're beliefs that we hold on to and that guide our actions or our inaction at times, and end up limiting our options for living the life that we want to, for doing what we want to. And they can erode our confidence, usually do. They can result in self-sabotage, right? Because we're afraid of failure or even sometimes fear of success. And these paradigms and mindsets, lead us to basically take a self-defeating, self-sabotaging, course of action. It's kind of like what I was saying before with the fixed mindset about getting better at math, say. If you think you're bad at math, then you probably won't study for the test as much as you should because you are afraid that, well, if I work my butt off and then I still do badly, which I think I'm going to because I have a fixed mindset, I think I'm just bad at math, well, then you'll do badly on the test, but then you can blame it on not studying enough, right? And it's not even a conscious decision most of the time. It's our subconscious acting on these limiting beliefs, right? And then self-sabotaging us, trying to protect our egos in a way, but in the end, it's just really self-defeating. So let's talk about some of these, limiting beliefs and paradigms and mindsets that get in the way and how to shift them. So one, as I just said, a big one is fixed mindset versus growth mindset, right? That's makes an enormous difference. And Carol Dweck at Stanford and her colleagues have done a tremendous amount of work on this over the years. There's a great TED Talk by Carol Dweck on the growth mindset. And so that can make a big difference in your life. Another mindset would be that you see yourself as not worthy of love, right? Maybe you weren't loved well enough when you were a kid, by your parents, by your family. Maybe you have a fear of abandonment from being adopted like I am. And I've had to wrestle with that my whole life, this fear of abandonment. And it's created this mindset at times that I'm not worthy of love, I'm not worthy of success, acceptance. And so that one can be really harmful to us, right? It could be that you have a mindset that you think you're lazy. You've been told you're lazy, or you were told you were lazy or selfish when you were a kid, and yet the laziness thing might be that you engaged in a lot of self-sabotage as a kid because maybe you had a learning disability or ADHD, something that was getting in the way. Maybe you had anxiety. Maybe you were suffering from depression at some point. And any of those things can get in the way of you producing work and of putting in focused work and effort. But maybe adults or an adult at some point labeled you, judged you, made an assumption that you were lazy because you weren't doing well at school. But it might have had nothing to do with work ethic or desire. Or maybe it ended up like killing your work ethic and your desire to do the work because it was so constantly frustrating and no one was helping you by setting you up to be successful, right? And giving you the support and help that you needed. So, of course, you're going to stop trying at some point because the system and the people around you are kind of rigging everything for you to fail. So, but then we take that mindset, that way of seeing ourselves into adulthood, right? Our id, our sense of self, they think gets formed around the age of 11 or 12. Like, what a cruel joke at this time when we're the most, insecure and struggling to figure out who we are. We're just starting, and really have a sense of self that's been dictated by the adults and other insecure pre-adolescence or adolescence. And that's what we're carrying into adulthood and through our lives. So obviously those mindsets can be really, really damaging, right? And we've got to figure out which ones we've got and try to overcome them. Some of it we can do on our own. Some of it a life coach can help you. If you're interested in working with me, obviously reach out. We can set up an exploratory call, which is always free. But some cases you might need or want to talk to a therapist about it. But we have to figure out, like, what are these mindsets that we're carrying with us that are affecting the way we see ourselves and therefore limiting our ability to live the life we want. And then there are the paradigms, right? The ways we see the world, right? All people are good, or most people are good, or most people are bad, or you can't trust these groups of people, or the system's rigged and it's rigged in this way, or the capitalist paradigm that we're all here to basically make money and build wealth and consume and buy stuff, and that's what we're here for. So a lot of the focus of our education is about that, right? To get the education so you can get the job, so you can make the money, so you can spend the money, and rinse and repeat. That's what we all do. There are other paradigms. There's a way of looking at the world that they have in South Africa called Ubuntu that's really awesome. It means I am because we are because I am. The idea is that we're all interconnected, and that it's very difficult, maybe impossible at times, for me to be happy, successful, safe, etc., if the other people in my community or my country aren't, and vice versa, that other people are going to find it more difficult to thrive and succeed and be safe and all that if I'm not, right? That we have to take care of each other, and we have to make sure that there's opportunity for everybody and justice for everybody, and right. So that's a beautiful paradigm, I think, to have, and those paradigms affect everything from the way that we interact with each other and our decisions in life and our priorities, and it affects public policy and laws that get made and how people vote, and they're really, really important. And there are ones that are really helpful and positive and constructive, and there are ones that are destructive. There are a lot of paradigms going around right now that are based on hatred or fear or anger, and a lot of people are paying the price for that, and more people will pay the price for that. So we've got to really be thoughtful about, do I see the world through jaded, vision, cynical, right, perspectives, or rose-colored glasses? Maybe I see things too Pollyannish, right? Too positive. I'm naive. You got to figure out, what's a more healthy, accurate way of looking at the world, and how do we promote that, right? So that more of us feel maybe more of a sense of connection to each other. And, if you have a paradigm that, we have an obligation to leave the world better for future generations, well, then your priorities for yourself and your family, and your priorities for your country, and for public policy, those are going to be different, right? Than if you think I'm here just for me. I'm rugged individualism. It's all up to me, and I'm in it for myself, and it's each person for themselves, and screw the future generation. It's up for them to figure out how to live a good life. However we leave things for them, right? Different paradigms that are going to affect our actions very, very differently. So what do we do about all this, right? And our inner voice. So the first thing is to practice mindfulness. This is why meditation, or one reason why meditation is so powerful and important. If you meditate every day, and do what you can. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. And again, the point of meditation isn't to have this silent mind. Our inner voice is very chatty. I read an interview with the Dalai Lama where he was asked, when you're meditating, how long do you go without thoughts intruding, without your inner voice chatting? And he said, 3 or 4 seconds. That's the Dalai Lama. And often he only goes 3 or 4 seconds without thoughts intruding. The point is to adopt that observer mindset that I was talking about earlier, right? To observe the thoughts coming in and let them leave. Like, don't give them more energy or focus, and bring your focus back to your breathing or the voice of the person doing the guided meditation or the mantra that you're saying, whatever. The point is to practice, to train your brain to be observant rather than just being blindly led by that inner voice, and then to make conscious decisions about what to do in this moment right now, right? What to be focusing on, saying, doing, whatever. And so that's important. And mindfulness training can also, be kind of a walking meditation, whether you may be meditating while you're walking or just doing like an observer mindset form of meditation where you go on a walk and you're just trying to observe everything you can observe, sights, sounds, smells, whatever, right? So that's another way that you can do it. But to develop that capacity to really stop and say, okay, I hear that inner critic now, or I hear that negative paradigm. What do I want to replace that with right now? So mindfulness is incredibly important. Journaling can help us with this. To start off the day with positive affirmations that reinforce positive mindsets and positive paradigms, right? I can get better at this. I struggle with this right now, but with practice, I can get better. Most people are good. We're all in this together. Ubuntu, I am because we are because I am. I'm worthy. I am lovable, right? I'm a hard worker. Whatever mindsets and paradigms you think will replace the negative ones that you've had, write them in your journal, maybe over and over again. When you're meditating in the morning or even just lying in bed, like say them to yourself. Maybe put some of them on your mirror, right? Tape them to your mirror in the bathroom so that while you're brushing your teeth, you can repeat them to yourself. And doing these affirmations can be really powerful. It can set your mood for the day, and it makes them more active in your brain. You're more likely to think about them, to be influenced by them, to remember them, particularly if you find yourself being tempted by or hearing that inner voice talking about, those negative mindsets and paradigms during the day. So that's another thing you can do, right? So we've got meditation and kind of training your observer mindset. We've got journaling. We've got affirmations that you can write or say in the morning. Same thing at night, doing some kind of reflection, whether it's journaling or something else where you kind of go over like, where today did I have healthy mindsets and paradigms, and where did I struggle with that, and how do I want to be better tomorrow so you can live with more intention tomorrow. You can also ask, have sort of an accountability coach, whether it's an actual life coach or your therapist or, a friend or family member, and just say, hey, can you kind of be on the lookout for these mindsets and paradigms, these limiting beliefs that I have, and when you hear me talking like I'm believing one of them, call me on it. Stop. Oh, hey, there's that fixed mindset. There's that capitalist paradigm, or that that individualistic paradigm that you don't want to have. Whatever it is, right? And that way, somebody else might catch you going down that path before you do, right? Before your observer brain is fully trained and on the job. So that's another way that you can try to shift this inner voice, right? So the point is to be observant and to catch it when it starts to go down the negative path, and to go, stop, no, I'm not going to listen to you right now, and then make a conscious choice of what you want to do, say, or think next that's going to reinforce positive paradigms, positive mindsets, that is going to empower you to set goals that you might have shied away from in the past, right? And that's another piece of this. To make sure that on a regular basis, daily, weekly, monthly, that you are sitting down and reflecting. Am I living the life I want to? Am I making the decisions that I want to? Do I have the goals, the hopes and dreams that I want to? And if I've been shying away from some of them, to lean into my discomfort zone and figure out like what's the paradigm or mindset that's been holding me back, and make a conscious decision to shift that mindset, to shift that paradigm, and adopt a more positive one that will now allow you to lean into that hope, lean into that dream, lean into that goal, and then figure out like what's something, a small step, concrete step, but a small one that's easily achievable that I can do today that starts to move me in that direction, and show that I can start to make that a reality, that I can manifest or co-create the life that I want. And that's the goal here, right? That's the goal, that we are manifestors, that we are the co-creators of our lives, right? Along with the universe and, our fellow human beings and other living things, right? The circumstances that we deal with, like we are co-creating. But if we're co-creating with our hands tied behind our backs because of these paradigms and mindsets and the negative self-talk and all that, like, no, like we're not going to create the life that we really want and deserve, right? So, figure out what you want, what you can control about it. And one of the things that probably the first thing that you need to get a little bit of control over is your inner voice. And you're not going to, completely change it. That's not the point. Any extent to which you can diminish the volume and frequency of the negative thoughts and self-criticism, harsh, cruel treatment, right? The self-sabotage that comes from that inner voice, that inner critic, right? The naysayer, the voice of anxiety and fear and anger. The more you can quiet it and reduce the volume, it will start to have a positive impact on your life, right? On your inner peace and your confidence and your focus and your ability to create the life and have the experiences and relationships that you want, right? And like it can change your relationships. There's one of my favorite, ways of thinking about this is that if we have a mindset that our relationships are transactional and that arguments are to be won or lost, well, then we're not going to be very good at solving problems with the people in our lives, right? That we're going to be trying to prove to them all the time that we're right and they're wrong and that they should cave in to me and I should win. And boy, there goes trust and there goes peace in your relationship. But if instead you have a mindset that relationships are about building something together and that any problem or disagreement, conflict that comes up is a problem for the two of you to solve together and find a win-win, then all of a sudden you become a better listener, right? And you want to understand what the other person thinks and feels, how they see things and what they want or need out of the situation. And then the two of you can work together to find a solution that you both can live with, right? That solves the problem. That's a radically different approach. You'll have radically different relationships if you have that mindset as opposed to the competitive, winner-take-all, in it for yourself mindset, right? So it can change dramatically the quality of your relationships, right? Just skimming the surface here. This is kind of a first crack at this inner voice stuff. We'll probably talk about this more in the future, but I hope that's helpful. Please leave something in the comments about the extent to which this was helpful, what it made you think about. Are there certain situations that you find particularly challenging, and we can talk about those in future episodes. So I'd love this to be a conversation and to be responsive to what you're thinking and needing and feeling about these topics. So please leave something in the comments. Again, make sure to rate and review the podcast and make sure you're following it. If any of this resonated with you and you'd like to work one-on-one on improving your inner voice and trying to shift some of your paradigms and mindsets, go to integrityandjoy.com and sign up for a free initial consultation. I appreciate you joining me. Next episode will be a really great one. It's a long one, but so worth it. I'm interviewing 2 more former students of mine. I'm just lucky. I've had a lot of great people in my life when I was a teacher. Adam Bayer and Ben Sackler. And they are 2 fascinating guys who are figuring out how to build the lives that they want. They're kind of in the middle of it, which is actually really interesting to have that window, as opposed to Jamie, who's been at it for a while. And they this summer hiked the Appalachian Trail, and as a warm up, they did like a marathon in Greenland. Their account of their adventure hiking the AT is amusing, entertaining, fascinating, insightful. You're not going to want to miss it. So that's our next episode. But again, I'm Steve Walker. Thanks for joining me, and keep tuning into Integrity and Joy. Thanks for listening. If today's episode resonated with you, imagine what we could accomplish together in a one-to-one coaching session. Visit integrityandjoy.com to learn more and book your free consultation. Let's create the life you've been striving for.